Malaysia!
So before we start, this is Gladys. She's our water feature. My mum loves her. We were in Malaysia for just under a month. It's quite a long time to spend there, but we did really enjoy our time.
Our opinion on Malaysia was that we really did love it. So the mixture of the amazing islands, the great diving, snorkeling, the walking in the central part of the peninsula, just a great mixture of things to do there, and we'd highly recommend it.
We only went to the peninsula of Malaysia. We literally just mean the bit between Singapore and Thailand. Tips that we have for Malaysia.
When you go to Malaysia, you do get a free visa for 30 days. You don't have to organise this in advance, you just have to enter the country and sort that out when you're on the border.
In Malaysia, they predominantly practice Islam. So when you're there, remember to cover up. This is something that we cannot stress enough.
So the currency that you'll be using in Malaysia is the Malaysian ringgit, which at the time we were there was roughly 5 to 1 on the pound. Found on Malaysia. So what we found is that when we were on mainland away from the islands, there was nowhere near as many tourist information shops. It makes life a little bit more difficult, but just have to get yourself a bit of internet and sort it out that way. When you're booking things like buses, we would advise that you book them online or directly at the bus station. So what are your options with transport, the cost and the route to take in Malaysia?
We got a bus from Singapore into Malaysia. It was £15. We went to Mersing. When you're travelling around Malaysia, you're most likely to take buses. Now on the islands, it's really easy to book your bus to the next destinations, but internally on the peninsula, then you might want to book that online, like Josh said before.
On the east coast of Malaysia, there's plenty of islands for you to visit. So you get your bus to the port, it's going to be crowded by people saying that they've got the best price for boats, but just shop around and try and figure out the going rate.
The route we took was we went up the east coast of Malaysia and then we cut across, went to Penang and flew from Penang to Kuala Lumpur into Thailand.
Things to do while you're in Malaysia.
We went to Tioman purely for the Juara Turtle Project. Now, we stayed there for a week. It was just over £100, I think, but it was well worth it. The link for the website is below, or you can check it out on our website. But as a summary, firstly, we learnt a lot about sea turtles. We watched a green turtle lay her eggs. It was fascinating. I'm probably never ever going to do that again in our lives. If you're really lucky, you could be there in hatchling season, so you could help release all those baby turtles into the ocean. And also a massive part of what we did while we were there was to educate about the conservation surrounding sea turtles. You also are very lucky if you stay there because you have a house turtle called Jo. Now she's really lovely, you get to feed her and take care of her tank. There is also a schedule for patrolling the beach at night, and if you see turtle tracks then you go and get the team and you get to watch a turtle laying her eggs. One thing to bear in mind is that if you go to Tioman, the port that you will go into, it will be the opposite side of the island to the Juara Turtle Project, so you're going to have to get a taxi, but make sure that you don't pay over 50 ringgit.
Lastly, we want to make a big shout out to everyone at the Turtle Project. We had a great time there and we can't recommend it enough for anyone watching who's interested in that sort of thing. So we ended up in a place called Kuala Terengganu. Quite an interesting place, isn't it? Very religious, untouristy city. So if you want to see the real Malaysia, then yeah, go to it. But we personally were quite intimidated by it all, and we didn't want to spend more than one night there.
We didn't realise how strict it would be there, and maybe we didn't cover up enough, and that's what made us feel uncomfortable.
This was a stopover for us on the way to the Perhentians from Tioman. So you will have to stop here. I'm sure it's a really good city, but we didn't give it a chance.
There is a big island and a small island. We stayed on the small island because it's more equipped for backpackers. There are two beaches. There is Long Beach and there is Coral Bay. We stayed at Coral Bay because we found that it was a slightly more quiet place and it was also a tiny bit cheaper. In Coral Bay, we stayed at accommodation called Butterfly. A Butterfly is a really interesting accommodation because it's this lovely man who builds it all himself. It is stunning. However, it's very basic.
The main thing we did when we were in the pensions is we did our open water paddy, and that cost us £200, which was so good. We loved it. A really great place to do it. The dive centre that we went to was called Turtle Bay Divers. Great instructors there. All the staff are so nice and friendly.
Hello, Haran. This is a bit more expensive than Thailand, but we dived in both Koh Tao and the Perhentians. We would say that the Perhentians has less busy diving spots. Although the coral and the fish are probably equally as good, I would say choose the Perhentians over Koh Tao if you want to do your qualification.
Every single restaurant and hostel will offer a snorkeling trip. Personally, we found it better to just go snorkeling off around the coast by ourselves. We saw better stuff there than we did actually on the snorkel trip.
The marine conservation laws in Malaysia are a bit lax, so we found that on the snorkel trip, a lot of the coral was bleached and ruined. The Cameron Highlands.
Because it's so high up, the climate is quite cool and perfect for walking, which is what you will end up doing here. We did Route 1, which goes all the way up to the top of Brinchang, about 2 hours to the top, and this is the highest road in Malaysia. There's great views across all the mountains. If you're up for a challenge, definitely do that. Then we walked down through the mossy forest, through all the tea plantations, to get some incredible pictures down through there. Eventually you will end up at Bow Tea Plantation, where you can enjoy a nice cup of tea and a bit of cake after your long walk. Alternatively, you can get a 4x4 up to the top of Brinchang, and then a 4x4 all the way back down again. That is just nowhere near as much effort and a bit more relaxing.
There are lots of different routes that you can take when you're in the Cameron Highlands. One that we would recommend not to go on is Route 9. We had heard lots of horror stories about a man that pulls a knife out on you and he tries to take your camera and money. Now, our friends, hello Million Fish, accidentally ended up on this trail, and it actually happened to them. Remember not to walk Route 9. We made our way to the strawberry farm, the bee farm, and the butterfly and insect farm. However, we went to these three places and they weren't that good. Penang.
So Penang is considered the food capital of Malaysia. That's where you get all your great street food and everything like that from. We end up staying in a place called Kimberley House, which is only £6 a night. Really nice guest house type place, close to a massive shopping centre. It's close to a really good street market where you can get all different types of Malaysian food.
And really good Wi-Fi.
Other than eating, which you'll do a lot of in Penang, you can go and see Kek Lok Si Temple, which apparently is the biggest Buddhist temple in Southeast Asia. It was brilliant, wasn't it? The architecture and all that sort of stuff there, just you can't understand how they've done it. The decoration is brilliant. One of the only temples we actually went to. If you find yourself Penang and the weather's not that great, then we'd recommend going to a cinema. We ended up going to see Fast and Furious 7. It costs us about £2, so it's super cheap. So if you're waiting for a bus or just bored for things to do, then it's a great way to fill a few hours.
Two places that we didn't go, which we've heard great things about. Firstly, Kuala Lumpur, but we had heard it was just like any old city in Southeast Asia. Also, Redang Island. If you have a look at the pictures on Google, it looks incredible, but we didn't go. So that's somewhere also to take into consideration.
What was the total cost of Malaysia for us?
Like the rest of Southeast Asia, we recommend budgeting about £1,000 a month. You probably won't spend it, but it's better to have more money than less money.
By us budgeting £1,000 a month, it allowed us to do things like diving, and then when we got to Vietnam, we had a bit more money to spend on the tailored clothes and things like that.
Yeah.
You might not spend it every month, but you'll make up for it overall.
We hope that we've given you some information to think about on your trip to Malaysia. If you haven't been or you're not thinking about going, definitely consider it. It's a great place, beautiful, and you'll learn a lot.
Like with all of our videos, we recommend that you go onto our website and check out all the detailed information that we wouldn't want to bore you with in the video, and also go onto our YouTube channel and check out the rest of our videos for all of our other travel tips from the other countries we went to.